Hello and welcome to Clinical Thursday with the Equine Healing Collaborative. The content in this video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not a substitute for psychotherapy or mental health treatment. Equine-assisted psychotherapy should only be practiced by a licensed mental health professional with proper training. If you are in need of support, please reach out to a qualified provider in your area.
Okay, hi everybody. Jennifer Fenton here with the Equine Healing Collaborative, and welcome to Clinical Thursdays. So we are going to be doing another intervention with you. This is our group clinical supervision, and all of our clinicians go through our different interventions. And the reason that we do that is because it helps us to learn a lot more about ourselves, as well as the process that our clients go through. And so I have invited Cassie here to come on over. Yeah, come on over. She is going to be my client today. Cassie is a clinician here at the EHC, and so again, she's going to be participating in this intervention.
For today's intervention, we will be using Remmi. He was surrendered to us from the Pebble Beach Equestrian Center after it closed. After years of hard, dedicated work, he came here for a much-needed retirement and some rehabilitation. Since arriving, Remmi has been adjusting to a much slower pace, getting the care he needs, rebuilding strength, and finding comfort in the herd. His story is one of quiet transition, from work to rest, and from service to healing.
All right, so in this intervention, what we're going to be doing is I'm actually going to be inviting you, Cassie, to think about a particular situation, feeling, anything at all within the past week that you have found particularly troubling. And so what we're going to do is we're going to imagine that all of the dirt and the dust that is on Remmi is that particular challenging issue. And so as you are working with him and as you are grooming him, you're essentially going to be brushing away whatever that issue is. And you don't have.
Before we begin, I hand Cassie each brush one at a time and ask her to notice the weight, the texture, and how each one feels in her hand. I encourage her to run her fingers through the bristles and pay attention to how her body responds, where she feels tension, comfort, or even resistance. I ask Cassie to see if one brush feels like it could help her start letting go more than the others. This process creates a tactile and somatic experience that helps regulate the nervous system, increase body awareness, and invites mindfulness before engaging with the horse. It's a simple moment, but clinically it opens space for grounding and emotional processing for what Cassie is about to face.
And whenever you feel comfortable, you can go ahead and you can get started.
As Cassie begins the grooming process, I observe both her and Remmi and how they are responding to each other. I watch the rhythm of her brush strokes, whether they're quick and anxious or slow and intentional, and notice if she stays in one area or moves around the horse. I'm also tracking her body language, her breathing, and how connected she seems to the task. At the same time, I am watching Remmi to see if he leans into her touch, shifts away, flicks an ear, or softens his posture. His reactions help me understand what Cassie might be holding. If he relaxes, it may reflect her regulation. If he tenses, it might show something that is unresolved. The interaction becomes a somatic exchange between horse and human, offering insight into Cassie's internal world and helping guide where we go in the processing that follows. And Cassie, when you feel like you have removed that from Remmi, you feeling good about that?
Yeah, there's a little more.
I'm good. Okay, so Cassie, tell me, are you ready? Okay. So tell me a little bit about what happened for you.
So the first feeling that came up for me, there was a few feelings. One was grief, another one was longing, and staying in the discomfort, and so that was what was coming up for me. And then so when I started to brush, I noticed that I felt very like detail-oriented and had to get the strokes just right, or I had to get like the dust in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And I felt like a lot of bubbling up in my chest.
Like emotion?
Like pain.
Okay.
Like emotional pain, not physical pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I didn't know what to do with it. As I continued to I noticed that Remmi's like breath, and so I started to slow down with him. When I did that, I noticed my strokes started getting more like softer, or at least not softer, but longer.
Okay.
And it was just interesting to me because I kept seeing more dust, and it just never seemed complete.
Oh, okay.
And for some reason, like that really bothered me and I didn't want to end. But I felt like, okay, I've been here a while, so I feel like I should end.
Oh, that's so, okay, that's interesting.
And so I ended probably earlier a lot than I wanted to. I feel like I could have been here for at least another hour, probably brushing the same spot, maybe the other side.
Okay.
But it was very telling to me of like where I feel like I'm at in my stage of grief, and I feel like it's always going to be there.
So could we summarize that as saying that there's a part of you that's just trying to kind of rush through the grief?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just kind of like, do you feel like it's like you don't want to feel the sadness?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
I definitely want to move past it, and I just want to feel like healed. And I think that's me. I'm trying all these different things in my life. I'm trying to like rush the process of healing, but my body's like not there.
Well, and you said no matter how much you brushed, he still looked dirty to you.
Yeah.
So no matter how much you're kind of doing to try to deal with the grief, it still is like this underlying dust.
Yeah.
Okay.
Man.
Okay. How do you think Remmi was during the...
So that's another interesting part. I noticed that Remmi seemed kind of dysregulated, kind of moving about. And it was interesting in that moment. I really leaned on you to kind of like hold that space so that I could be with him and stay with him. And I felt so like laser focused into doing the brushing that it like, I noticed it and it was kind of getting to me, but I just continued to push forward for whatever reason in that space. Even though it was bubbling up, I almost felt like maybe he was trying to tell me something and I wasn't hearing it.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, it sounds like there's part of you that is working really hard to understand your grief, in spite of the fact that it's moving around and it's kind of vague and ambiguous. You're working very hard to try to like get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that sound okay?
That sounds very accurate.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, these horses, they always
I
tell us
know.
all the things.
Sweet babies.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for being my client today.
Thank
so we're
you.
gonna break out of the therapeutic mold and kind of move more into the teaching mold.
Okay.
So, like I said earlier, some of the things that I would be looking for is I would be looking to see, how Cassie was holding the brush, right? And I think that like really the way that she was holding the brush really actually reflected exactly what you said, that there was like this rushing that was kind of happening and like this almost like maybe like a perfectionism, right?
Yeah.
I have to get through grief correctly. No societal pressure there. And the other thing that I noticed is that you mostly remained on one side.
Yeah.
So from a clinical perspective, those would just be things that I would probably bring into the session as things that I would want to notice for Cassie. So is it possible that there's this focus on grief that is linear in nature, and that maybe that there might be a lot more that's happening that is just because of this linear viewpoint of like what is causing the grief? It could be that there are other aspects of the grief that maybe you're not in a place to face yet, right? So if I were to do this intervention again, like with Cassie as my client, the next time I did it, I might invite Cassie to take into consideration the whole horse. And I may even ask her to think about, this side that she's very clearly comfortable with, and then this side that maybe she's not necessarily comfortable with. Now, I mean, I don't know, maybe I did something as the clinician to kind of, lead her into one side or the other. I could kind of play around with that and maybe like notice myself standing on one side because I was kind of on one side. And I don't know if you guys saw, I kind of positioned myself more towards the center of Remmi, and I did that in an attempt to see like maybe my body positioning is influencing where you are. And so maybe if I move over to this side, there's a chance that you might move over to that side
Right.
too.
Yeah.
And you weren't having it.
No. I told you, I was like staying there in that spot and I kept seeing the dust and I was like, I can't move from this spot just yet. I have to stay here a little longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I felt like a pressure to kind of finish up quickly too. Or like get it cleaner faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get through the grief faster. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
grief is never, unfortunately, it's never a clean process. Have you ever done this with clients?
This specific intervention, we've done grooming. I usually like have clients like process their grief out loud or their challenges out loud as they're doing it.
Okay.
But never had them like kind of doing it on their own silently.
Okay.
So I kind of want to try that now.
Yeah.
I usually just have it out loud and they're talking and processing and I usually do like a before and after check-in,
Yeah.
but not silently. And I'm curious how much more information I could get by just not interacting and doing it with them. Yeah.
Well, no, it's interesting that you say that because we had actually approached this in our other supervision, and that was kind of like this idea of, some people the way that they process is they process through like verbal, whereas other people are not as comfortable being verbal, and so could you potentially do this with the person actually processing whatever the topic is while they're grooming? And I think we could do that, and I think that we could think about maybe setting up the intervention in two different ways for the same client. So maybe trying it one time silently and then trying it another time while the client is kind of actively talking about what is happening. And of course, like, we have clients who don't want to talk at all for various reasons, or they're just not comfortable disclosing that or sharing that information with us. And so I think, kind of feeling where your client is in the context of the stage of change is going to be really important for making that determination about like how you'd like this to, to kind of unfold.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the recognizing the stage of change part. And then just again, the kind of processor that are they more internalizing their behaviors or externalizing? And I have a client that could absolutely benefit from just being silent.
Okay.
Just processing.
Yeah.
I think they feel a need or a pressure to process out loud, and that's just not.
It's not their style.
It's not.
No, it's not their style. Yeah. And sometimes I think I've done this intervention several times with clients, and sometimes I'll find that clients may not necessarily even know or understand what their style is as far as like how they process feelings, situations, circumstances. And so sometimes I'll leave that question open so that we can just see kind of like what naturally flows for them, and then they can make that decision from there. Yeah, it's super good intervention. All right. Okay, any other final thoughts?
I'm really glad I was chosen. I have like performance anxiety, but I felt like I've been holding on to that emotion and I didn't know what to do with it.
Cool.
So I really appreciate that.
Cool.
I was like, should I journal? I didn't journal. Tried watching. I used a lot of distractions.
Yeah.
And so this was a really good way for me to be present, even though I didn't want to be present.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of people, there's something about the physical act of brushing something away that really helps.
It's such a visual too. I'm a very visual person. I even see this as like if a client weren't here but they've done this activity or this intervention, I would have them, if they ever were doing like a mindfulness, in their room or in class or wherever they are, being able to just recognize and remember, just imagine brushing Remmi, and having those like challenges or worries, struggles kind of
fading away with the dust.
Yeah.
This is really fun when horses are very muddy in the winter. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. Well, and and I have found like clients that have super, super intense emotional responses, and they just you can tell that they almost feel like there's a certain taboo that's associated with their intensity.
Yeah.
And there's something about this activity when a horse is really muddy that gives them permission to have that level of intensity. And boy, I've seen some clients clean some really, really muddy horses, like really muddy horses. It's actually pretty cool. Okay. Any other thoughts?
No.
No.
And are you?
We can edit and delete.
Okay. Let me.
Edit and delete.
Okay. I'm nervous. Wait, let me
It's
put these
okay.
on.
You did.
For any reason, or this seems like one you can do with any?
Yeah, you can do this with any horse. I think you're going to get different responses out of different horses. So,
Yeah.
you know, Remmi's a little bit more extroverted and also like really emotional, kind of like Smokey. So he's going to need a lot of extra support from you. Nashville is going to just immediately drop into his body, and you could like put the lead rope on the ground and walk away.
Yeah.
So I think it just kind of depends on like what it is that you're looking for or going for. There are times where I literally will be like, let me find the muddiest horse I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoever it is.
Yes. Whoever it is. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. You know, and another thing that you can do with this too that I really, you know, like to do, and I think Cassie, you know, you were really kind of focused on the one side, but I really like to invite people to consider, you know, the whole horse.
Yeah.
And maybe like if it's a circumstance or something, or like a situation, maybe the situation is really complicated and complex, and so you can literally, you know, have certain areas of the horse represent like certain aspects of that complex situation. So maybe the body of the horse is all of the emotions that are associated with it. Maybe the legs of the horse are you know, all of the, I don't know, just like maybe the situation itself, or you can have them like represent like different things. So I think you can get really creative.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you mention that because, and it's starting to come to me now. When I was on the one side, I was tempted to go to the other side, and I was trying to, in my head, symbolize that as like, that is the healing happening, and that's the healing complete. But I wasn't like registering that, like I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, oh, that could be it. That could totally symbolize that, but it's still dirty. Let me stay here.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's
But I did think about that.
Yeah. Okay, Remmi, what are we going to tell YouTube? You have to tell them to like, subscribe, and comment on all of our videos, because we need to be able to buy our home. Right over there. See that over there, Remmi? That's right. Yeah. You did a good job. You did a good job. Say bye. Bye, YouTube. Bye-bye.